The special committee investigating the lane closures near the George Washington Bridge is expected to issue its first round of subpoenas any minute now. And as Governor Chris Christie deals with the fallout of the scandal, a new Senate Intelligence Committee report is giving Republicans a new reason to talk about Benghazi and Hillary Clinton. Our first read team notes Benghazi versus the bridge. The two stories could potentially last well into 2016. Meantime, a new Time magazine cover story asks, can anyone stop Hillary if she decides that she wants to run for president? Joining me now live, NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. And Mark, you and your team make some interesting observations about Benghazi versus Bridgegate, if there's even a parallel here other than the two individuals who may run for president. First, with Benghazi, you make the point that this has been the focus of a number of hearings and obviously a great amount of coverage, both in conservative and so-called liberal press as well.
Well, that's right. And then you compare that to the bridge scandal for Governor Chris Christie in New Jersey, and that's just barely a week old. And you're right. The Benghazi story has been litigated significantly, whether it was the 2012 presidential election, during congressional hearings, independent reports, and now, of course, there was the latest Senate Intelligence Committee report that came out yesterday. And that doesn't mean that this isn't going to be a problem for Hillary Clinton going forward. In fact, this is where a lot of conservatives and Republicans feel like it's able to go after her on her national security credentials, but it's something that's been out there for a while. It has been all the tires have been kicked. We just don't know what's going to come out in this bridge matter for Chris Christie, and it could be something in which he is completely fine at the end of the day, but that's not going to be determined for the several weeks and months ahead.
And you also make the point the first read team does, and that with Benghazi, this new report does not indicate there was a cover-up, as some have alleged and speculated, but certainly it points the finger directly at the State Department and great and grievous mistakes that were made, but no cover-up was noted in this report.
Well, that's right. And the overall headline was that there was a lack of leadership at the State Department when it came to this kind of security. And that charge is probably, if Hillary Clinton's up running for president in 2016, enough to damage her if you're a Republican and the Republican nominee and the Republican National Committee in that next presidential election. But when you start trying to go into the conspiracies and the cover-ups that you sometimes get on the blogosphere and elsewhere, that is a little bit of an overreach. And when people end up saying, well, we've seen all these different reports and there wasn't a cover-up, there wasn't any kind of conspiracy, then that kind of falls on deaf ears. And that's also a lesson for Democrats here in this bridge scandal story, that if they actually try to overreach too, they might end up hurting themselves. And so sometimes it's better to go after the facts, because sometimes the facts are good enough to use in presidential and political campaigns. It's always better to go after the facts. But Mark, let me ask you, I mean, listen, whether his answers were enough to satisfy people or not, Chris Christie answered questions for nearly an hour and a half or so, and he's got more certainly to do here. What is the word or the likelihood that we will see a big sit down with Hillary Clinton before, if she does plan to run, before she announces? We saw her very strong in that hearing and push back significantly at that time. But is there more to be expected before an official word on whether she will run? Oh, absolutely. The thing is, she has plenty of time. I think if she ends up running for president, we're not going to see her out actively campaign until early or mid-2015. So we're talking about a year or year and a half away, Tamron. And you are right. She only sat down for one interview. I believe it was a New York Magazine interview several months ago. But that's been it. And if she does want to run for president, she's going to have to get interviews from NBC News, MSNBC, all other news outlets, because there are plenty of questions that we have to ask about this subject and others.
Mark Murray, thank you so much, Mark. We'll speak with you tomorrow.